Welcome to Stop Fake, the place where we set the record straight on fakes about Ukraine. I'm Marco Supran, and on this week's menu of mendacity, we have claims that Ukrainians are being massively deported from the European Union, that the EU is willing to improve relations with Russia at all costs, and that the tight-fisted Ukrainian government will stiff its military by denying pay increases in 2018. So let's get to the details. Although the new year is only a week old, Russian disinformation is kind of like a broken record. It repeats the same old story with a new scratch, or in this case, detail. Ever since visa-free travel for Ukrainians to the Schengen zone EU countries went into effect in mid-June of last year, the Russian disinformation machine has been working overtime, concocting all sorts of fakes and fantasies. The latest take on this old theme is a claim published by the marginal site Rossiyskiy Vesti, claiming that Ukrainians are being massively deported from EU countries. The Rossiyskiy Vesti article seemingly compares data from the Ukrainian Border Service with the last report issued by the European Border and Coast Guard Agency, Frontex, to claim that nationals who are most often refused entry to the EU, deported from the EU, or illegally stay in the EU are Ukrainians. Neither the Ukrainian Border Service data nor the Frontex report make any such claims. According to European Commission Press and Information Officer David Stulik, the first 6 months of Ukrainian visa-free travel saw a 10% increase of Ukrainians visiting Europe compared to a similar period in 2016, and only a few dozen were refused entry. The NGO Visa-Free Europe, whose goal is a completely visa-free Europe, reports that only 49 Ukrainians were denied entry to the Schengen zone since the visa-free regime went into effect. In December of 2017, the European Commission issued a report on the implementation of commitments by countries that are part of the EU visa suspension program. The report states that Ukraine needs to implement recently enacted anti-corruption reforms and notes illegal stays and denials of entry are on a downward trend for Ukrainians. The report's general conclusion is that Ukraine is fully complying with the terms of its EU visa suspension program. Russian media distorted the words of Lithuanian President Dalia Grybauskaitė and Estonian Foreign Minister Sven Mikser in order to create the impression that the European Union is seeking to improve relations with Russia at any cost. At the same time, these fake Russian stories completely ignore the reason for European sanctions, and the currently tense relations between the EU and Russia is Moscow's annexation of Crimea and its proxy war in eastern Ukraine. Pro-Kremlin site Ukraina.ru began this series of fakes with a story on December 24th, claiming that Latvian President Dalia Grybauskaitė said, quote, "It is better to cooperate with Russia rather than fight." A few days later, Ukraina.ru continued the narrative, claiming that following President Grybauskaitė's lead, Estonian Foreign Minister Sven Mikser was advocating closer relations with Russia. In an interview with 15 Minutes, one of the largest news websites in Lithuania, President Grybauskaitė was asked if she thought Russia would remain Lithuania's biggest threat in the next decade. Russia would likely remain difficult in the coming years, and if the leader of the country remains the same, the situation will also stay the same, the president answered. But I am not going to just wave my hand and say I don't want to talk. Everything changes. The geopolitical situation is changing, and this is why we must be open to change, Grybauskaitė said. Leaving Ukraine's occupied territories, being less aggressive and flexing less muscle and influence in the elections of other countries would make cooperation with Russia's neighbors possible, Grybauskaitė underscored. Estonian Foreign Minister Sven Mikser, meanwhile, was interviewed by the Russian agency Interfax. When asked to characterize Estonian-Russian relations, Mikser said that both Estonia and the EU are interested in good relations with Russia. For those relations to improve, Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty must be restored. Quote, "We can't just look through our fingers as Russia violates international law in Ukraine," Mikser said, adding that Estonia was committed to EU sanctions against Russia and only Russia itself could change the current situation. Russian media once again ignored the details of Minister Mikser's views, focusing only on his general premise that Estonia and the EU are interested in good relations with Russia. Scores of Ukrainian media published stories claiming that Ukraine was postponing raising servicemen's salaries for a year. Ukraine's Ministry of Social Policy, meanwhile, says that salary increases will proceed as planned on January the 1st, 2018. The source for the fake claims was a Cabinet of Ministers decree amending an earlier decree concerning servicemen's salaries. The decree outlining financial increases for additional training, academic degrees, sport achievement, and other improved qualifications of military personnel was changed to become effective in 2019. According to Ukraine's Minister of Social Policy, Andriy Reva, military salaries are part of the state budget, and the cabinet's decree in no way affects these budgeted costs. All military personnel will receive their salaries with 2018 increases factored in, he said. First Deputy Prime Minister Stepan Kubiuk confirmed Mr. Reva's assurances during the December 27th government meeting, adding that current Ukrainian laws concerning social protection for the country's military must guarantee appropriate material support for its men and women in uniform so that Ukraine's military can continue to attract qualified personnel, especially during this time of war. That's all we have time for this week. Remember, you can find more dissected fakes on our website, stopfake.org. Be vigilant, respect your mind, and don't consume fakes. If you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, send it to us for a truth autopsy. I'm Marco Supran, and this is Stop Fake. Happy New Year, and thanks for watching.